All right, guys, here is a trade recap from the stock MU that paid me over $2,000 in a single day with a trade that went over 100%. Let me show you the trade recap. All right, so here is the trade recap, all broken down step by step, and kind of my thought process behind this MU trade that went over 100% in one single day. So pretty much what I'm gonna start with is just going over my thought process and kind of all the commentary I've been doing on this stock in general over the last week. So I did post this I posted this on the 17th of April, and I said we're not bullish enough on MU and ARM. I specifically talked about those two names because those were the strongest semiconductor names that were setting up at the time. They had the biggest bases, right? We've had 2-year, yearly bases setting up on both these stocks that just were so primed to make this move, and it was almost just a matter of time when it was going to happen. It wasn't if, it was when, right? So I was talking about these two names the last week, right? ARM was setting up, this was back when it was at 160. This 2-year base that we've had on ARM, which I unfortunately missed out on ARM, that would have been a way bigger trade, but still was able to catch MU, which I don't think the trade on MU is done yet, but I'll go over that in a little bit. But this setup on MU or on ARM was absolutely insane. And then also MU, right? This is setting up in a monster. This is the monthly chart, or weekly chart. So this is, a 4 or 5 month base that we're just building up here on MU that just wants to expand out of this range, right? So that's what I was talking about there. And then if we come up to the chat here, this was also the 17th. I was just talking about, I think that MU and MU here. Okay, so MU and ARM are definitely the semi names that can rip soon. So these were all things that I was talking about week before these actually started happening, right? Obviously, ARM has been ripping for quite a while, but MU is the fresh new one that's starting to rip out here, right? And we've had, a lot of semiconductor names like Dell, AVGO, they're all ripping, and it's just a matter of which one's next, right? And NVIDIA could be next and stuff like that. But let's go through the trade real quick. So yesterday, or 2 days ago, I called out at around 2 p.m. So this is an hour before the market closed. I added the 550 calls for May 15th at 7.25 a contract. Stop loss was at low day. This was the look on MU at the time. Basically just building out a nice inside day here. Super coiled up right under the 472 all-time high spot. So this is basically a prediction of the all-time high breakout, right? I'm anticipating the breakout to happen. I want to enter it before it potentially could gap up, right? These are kind of the setups you see a lot of times that you miss out on because they end up gapping up the next day and it just rips through your targets and you can never really get into this trade. So it was a good idea to enter this before the breakout happened, because the next day it would have been too hard to probably get into this trade. And it might have been just too late and you wouldn't have caught the percent move that I did end up catching, right? But ended up swinging this. You can see this look here even closer. It was setting up in a nice 4 or 5 day, tight flag here. Low volume pullbacks to the moving averages, holding the 9 all the way up here since the lows. Just been holding it, and it's just basically a super primed stock to get in when it looks like this, right? It's just, you don't want to miss out on these opportunities. And yeah, so I capitalized on that. So basically said that, right, I'm trying to jump in early on a potential all-time high breakout. Those are usually some of the biggest breakouts you see is when all-time highs come in to play. We ended up getting a nice little pop in today. Didn't really trim anything. And we go on to the next day. We get, obviously a huge potential. I mean, we had a huge gap up in the morning. So it literally opened up already at 50% or 40%, where I was able to trim right at the open. Opened up at 460 from my 450 entry. So already a $10 pop through the morning, and then ends up all day just ripping. It went all the way up to, I think, like 490 something. It ended up, going 92%. It literally at the highs, I think it went to 17.4 from 7.25. And these are, month out expirations, right? They're not, weekly contracts or zero DTEs. These are monthly contracts that have moved like that, which is absolutely insane. 17.4 was the last one I sold, which was, what is that? Almost 107%, something like that, or I don't know, 110%, I think. But yeah, absolutely insane. From 725 to 1,740. per contract. So let's go through this trade real quick. You can see it absolutely ripped. It doesn't really look like a huge breakout, but it really was, right? We had a huge 9% day when the ADR is 6%, so it moves way more than it usually does. And you can see here, here's the entire trade entered back here, right? Here's the 30-minute chart. I didn't enter on the 30-minute, I entered more on the 15. So let's pull up the 15 here. So towards the end of the day, right, we had the beginning of the day, we kind of pushed down and recovered from the lows here, and we started building out a nice flag towards the end of the day, right? You can see it here. And this was kind of where I started to, like it a lot more. Wanted to enter this on a trade here. Started entering it after this, 15-minute was breaking out. Entered it around here. Obviously, we started pushing throughout, the rest of the day. Ends up selling off the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the close. Very scary look, right? That was definitely something I was a little cautious on, not gonna lie. But ended up swinging it. I held it. I had a good entry on it, so it didn't only really, end up pushing down maybe 10%, 5% maybe. I don't think it was 10%. It was like 5% that it pushed down from at the low here. So ended up swinging it down around like 6-7%. And then you can see, I'm gonna delete this. And then you can see the next following day, we get the major gap up in the morning, pushes up over that previous high. I think right before the open too, had some news came out, pushed, and we got a huge trim on the first initial push to 470. And that's where we took our first trims at. And then just the rest of the day, absolutely ripped. Huge volume on that big 472 break, all-time high spot. And then just ended up ripping all the way to like 491. So that was the trade. I ended up, not being able to hold that many runners, since I was not in this trade with as many contracts as I'm usually, since it were a little expensive. But nonetheless, huge trade. Took one single day. I mean, you got to take what you get when you get 100% returns in a day. Those are also just very, very, very good, right? But that was the trade recap on MU. And yeah, so that's basically it. Nothing crazy. Was this a simple prediction, simple trade that I'm anticipating on, kind of just a gut feeling type trade? At the end of the day, a lot of times taking a trade is just a gut feeling, right? What do you think could happen? Can't really sit there and predict the market too much. You just gotta put yourself in the right position and good things happen. And that's what happened here on MU. Stay tuned to the next one.